Shalbon was a small village surrounded by green fields, narrow canals, bamboo trees, and quiet ponds. During the day, it felt peaceful and welcoming. Farmers worked beneath the open sky, children played beside the water, and shopkeepers gathered under tin-roofed stalls to discuss crops, weather, and local news. To an outsider, Shalbon appeared to be an ordinary rural village where life moved slowly and predictably. But after sunset, the village seemed to become another place. The eastern side of Shalbon was covered by a dense bamboo grove. Beside it stood an enormous banyan tree believed to be more than a century old. Its hanging roots looked like ropes, and its broad leaves cast strange moving shadows whenever the wind passed through them. Beneath the tree stood a broken brick platform covered with flowers, candles, sweets, and incense. The villagers believed that the spirit of a woman named Maya lived inside the banyan tree. Many years earlier, several villagers had become sick, and Maya was accused of practicing witchcraft. No proper investigation was conducted. An angry crowd attacked her near the tree, while she continued to claim that she was innocent. Maya died beneath its branches, and from that night onward, fear transformed her death into a legend. Over the years, people claimed they heard a woman crying on moonless nights. Some described a white figure beneath the branches. Others reported glowing red eyes or the sound of anklets coming from inside the bamboo grove. Whenever an animal disappeared or a villager became ill, the banyan tree was blamed. No one used the eastern road after dark. People preferred walking 3 extra kilometers rather than passing it. A few months earlier, a new science teacher named Arif Hassan had joined Shalbon High School. Arif was young, calm, and deeply curious. He had completed his university education in the city but chose to work in a rural community because he wanted village students to experience science as a way of understanding life, not merely as a subject to memorize. The students liked Arif because he never asked them to remember an answer without understanding the reason behind it. He used water, plants, insects, weather, and household objects to explain scientific ideas. When students spoke about ghosts, curses, or magic, he did not insult them. He simply reminded them that fear was natural, but an explanation should be accepted only after the evidence had been examined. One afternoon, while Arif was teaching about infectious diseases, 16-year-old Rafi asked whether evil spirits could make people sick. Tanya said her grandmother believed some diseases came from bad spirits. Another student described a cousin whose fever had been blamed on black magic, although he recovered after receiving hospital treatment. Arif gently asked the class to consider whether the ritual or the medicine had cured him. Arif explained that before modern medicine, people did not understand bacteria, viruses, contaminated water, or mosquito-borne diseases. Supernatural explanations often filled the gaps in their knowledge. Then Babul challenged him with the story of the banyan tree. Students described crying sounds, white figures, glowing eyes, missing animals, and Kareem uncle fainting near the tree. Yet when Arif asked who had personally seen the ghost, the classroom became silent. The following week, fear spread through Shalbon when 12-year-old Liza suddenly became seriously ill. She developed a high fever, severe weakness, vomiting, and confusion. Her mother, Salma, believed Liza had been cursed after collecting fallen mangoes near the banyan tree. Instead of taking her to a doctor, Salma called a spiritual healer named Fakir Jalal. Fakir Jalal was well known in nearby villages. He was a lean, older man who wore a long black robe, carried a wooden staff, and spoke with dramatic authority. Standing at a distance from the sick child, he announced that Maya's spirit had entered Liza. He demanded a black goat and 7 red candles, insisting that no doctor could save her. Then he began chanting, burning dried leaves, and striking the floor. A neighbor informed Arif. When he entered the house, the room was thick with smoke, and Liza was breathing rapidly. Arif touched her forehead and immediately recognized the danger. Jalal ordered him not to interfere, but Arif calmly explained that high fever, vomiting, confusion, and dehydration could be life-threatening. The smoke was making her breathing worse, and every minute of delay increased the risk. Jalal warned Salma that taking Liza outside before the ritual ended could kill her. Arif answered that the child was already in danger. A hospital could test her blood, identify the illness, and provide treatment. Salma looked at her unconscious daughter and finally chose the hospital. With help from several villagers, Liza was carried through the night to the nearest health center. The doctor suspected severe typhoid fever caused by contaminated food or water. Liza received fluids, antibiotics, and supportive treatment. For 2 days, her condition remained serious, while Jalal told villagers that the doctors would fail. But on the 4th day, her fever began to fall. After a week, she was sitting up and eating again. The illness had been caused by bacteria, not by a spirit. Many villagers were relieved, but not everyone was convinced. Some argued that the spirit might have left because Jalal had completed part of the ritual. Arif realized that one successful treatment could not erase a belief carried through generations. Facts could be presented in a moment, but fear had been repeated for decades. To challenge it, he would need more than an argument. He would need visible evidence. A few days later, Arif approached the school headmaster, Mr. Rahman, and proposed a scientific investigation of the banyan tree. He wanted to examine the crying sound, the white figure, the glowing eyes, the anklet sound, the fainting incidents, and the claim that animals refused to pass. The headmaster feared the investigation might offend villagers, but he eventually agreed on one condition: Arif must not go alone. Arif selected 4 senior students, Rafi, Tanya, Babul, and Neela. He invited Dr. Farhana, who had treated Liza, and Kamal, an electrician from the nearby market. Before they began, Arif reminded everyone that their goal was not to declare that ghosts could not exist. Their task was simpler and more disciplined: test each reported claim carefully and record what the evidence showed. They prepared notebooks, flashlights, a camera, a sound recorder, a thermometer, ropes, spare batteries, and a basic air quality detector borrowed from a college laboratory. On the first evening, they reached the banyan tree before sunset. Although the students tried to appear brave, their nervous glances revealed how deeply the old stories had affected them. Arif examined the ground and lower branches. He found pieces of white cloth trapped among the leaves and broken glass bangles near the brick platform. More importantly, he noticed thin metal wires running between 2 trees. Kamal followed the wires through the bushes and discovered an old battery concealed inside a clay pot. The wires led to 2 small red bulbs fixed behind holes in a painted wooden mask. In darkness, the bulbs would appear to be a pair of glowing eyes watching from the tree. The students stared at the device in disbelief. Neela asked who had made it, but Arif warned them not to accuse anyone yet. Discovering a trick was evidence of deception, but it was not evidence of the deceiver's identity. Nearby, they found a long fishing line attached to a large piece of white cloth. The line stretched through the bushes toward a narrow hidden path. When someone pulled it from a distance, the cloth rose between the branches and appeared to float. Rafi asked whether the white ghost had been fake. Arif answered that this particular ghost certainly was. As darkness settled over the grove, the team switched off their flashlights and waited. Leaves scraped against one another. Insects created a continuous wall of sound. Then a long, piercing cry came from the upper branches. Tanya grabbed Neela's arm, convinced they had heard the woman. Arif raised his flashlight, and a barn owl flew from a hollow in the tree. Arif explained that barn owls can produce sounds similar to human screams. In darkness, especially when someone already expects danger, the brain may interpret an unfamiliar sound as something supernatural. A few minutes later, a soft metallic ringing drifted from the bamboo. The team followed it and found small metal pieces hanging from the stems. When the wind moved the bamboo, the pieces struck together like anklets. Not every mystery was solved that night. Near a low area beside the banyan tree, Rafi suddenly became dizzy. His head began to spin, and moments later Babul also felt weak. Arif immediately moved everyone away. Dr. Farhana checked the students. Their heart rates were high, but after breathing fresh air and drinking water, both gradually recovered. The air quality detector had shown an unusual reading near the low ground. The following morning, Arif and Dr. Farhana returned wearing masks. Behind the banyan tree, they found a shallow pit filled with decaying leaves, animal waste, and stagnant water. As organic material broke down, gases could collect in the poorly ventilated hollow and reduce the quality of the air. Dr. Farhana explained that poor air, combined with fear and rapid breathing, could make a person dizzy or even cause fainting. Arif added that fear can trigger hyperventilation, a racing heart, chest tightness, shaking, and confusion. When someone approaches a place expecting a ghost, every shadow and sound strengthens the body's stress response. This offered a scientific explanation for Karim Uncle's collapse near the tree. One question remained. Who had installed the lights, wires, cloth, fishing line, and metal pieces? Arif decided not to announce the discoveries immediately. Instead, the group concealed a camera near the banyan tree. For 3 nights, the recording showed nothing unusual. On the 4th night, 2 men entered after midnight, checked the battery, pulled the fishing line, and placed fresh candles beneath the tree. One of the recorded men was an assistant of Fakir Jalal. The other was Montu, a local smuggler. Arif informed the village chairman and the police. The following night, officers secretly watched the area. Around midnight, Montu and 2 men arrived carrying boxes. They had been using the deserted eastern road to transport illegal goods because frightened villagers never went near it after dark. The ghost stories had protected the smugglers' route. Fakir Jalal helped preserve the fear, warning that Maya's spirit was becoming angry whenever anyone questioned the legend. The panic also brought him money from rituals, sacrifices, and frightened families. The police arrested Montu and his men. Jalal was taken away for questioning as the machinery behind Shalbon's haunting finally began to collapse. The next morning, the entire village gathered in the school field. A table displayed the red bulbs, wires, wooden mask, fishing line, white cloth, and metal pieces. Arif switched on the bulbs inside the mask, and several villagers gasped. He pulled the fishing line, making the cloth float between 2 poles. Then he shook the bamboo stems, producing the familiar sound of anklets. Arif played a recording of the barn owl's cry. An elderly villager immediately recognized it as the sound he had heard 20 years earlier. Arif explained that some witnesses may have encountered the deliberate tricks, while others had misunderstood natural sounds and shadows. Over many years, separate experiences had been repeated, changed, and combined until they formed one powerful supernatural story. Dr. Farhana then spoke about Liza. Typhoid fever, she explained, is caused by bacteria and commonly spreads through contaminated food or water. Rituals cannot kill those bacteria, and untreated illness can become dangerous. Salma stood beside her recovering daughter and admitted that fear of a curse had almost cost Liza her life. The crowd listened in silence. Some of Jalal's followers argued that one dishonest healer did not prove every spiritual belief was false. Arif agreed. Science, he said, does not require people to disrespect culture, religion, or personal faith. It simply asks that claims about the physical world be tested with evidence. Belief and tradition could remain meaningful, but they should never prevent a sick child from receiving treatment. A farmer asked whether their ancestors had all been wrong. Arif answered carefully. Their ancestors had explained the world using the knowledge available to them. They did not have microscopes, laboratory tests, cameras, vaccines, or modern medicine. Respecting earlier generations did not mean refusing new knowledge. Their greatest tradition was not certainty. It was learning from experience and passing better understanding to those who came next. Another villager asked whether science knew everything. Arif answered that it did not. Science remained incomplete, but its strength came from admitting uncertainty. Scientific explanations could change when better evidence appeared. Superstition often did the opposite. It offered a fixed answer without investigation, then treated every coincidence as confirmation. Science did not promise perfect knowledge. It offered a reliable method for moving closer to the truth. The banyan tree investigation changed Shalbon, although not immediately and not completely. Fewer people visited Jalal. Parents began taking sick children to the health center sooner. The school organized science exhibitions, hygiene campaigns, and evening discussions. Students demonstrated water filtration, mosquito control, hand washing, and simple experiments. Curiosity began to appear in places where fear had once provided the only answer. Several months later, the village faced another crisis. Cattle began developing fever, mouth sores, and difficulty eating. Rumors spread faster than the disease. Some villagers claimed Maya's spirit was taking revenge because the brick platform beneath the banyan tree had been disturbed. A group of frightened farmers began collecting money for a large animal sacrifice. Arif contacted a veterinary officer named Dr. Imran. After examining the cattle, Dr. Imran identified signs of an infectious livestock disease. He advised farmers to separate sick animals, clean shared feeding equipment, disinfect the sheds, restrict animal movement, and follow veterinary guidance on vaccination and treatment. Yet many farmers resisted. A ritual felt familiar, while disease control measures required discipline and cooperation. One farmer insisted that his cow had recovered previously after he tied a sacred thread around its neck. Dr. Imran asked whether the animal had also received medicine. The farmer admitted that it had. He could not explain how he knew the thread, rather than the treatment, had caused the recovery. Arif used the moment to explain a common mistake, confusing coincidence with cause. During a village meeting, Arif offered a simple example. If rain begins after someone sings a song, that does not prove the song caused the rain. Two events occurring together do not automatically have a cause and effect relationship. To discover the cause, people must compare evidence, control other factors, and observe whether the same result appears consistently. Some farmers followed the veterinary advice. They separated sick cattle, cleaned feeding equipment, and disinfected their sheds. Others continued rituals while leaving healthy and infected animals together. Within days, the difference became visible. The disease spread rapidly on farms that ignored isolation. Farms that followed hygiene and separation measures recorded fewer new cases. The result convinced many of the remaining farmers. The planned sacrifice was cancelled. Instead, the village chairman proposed using the collected money to establish a small veterinary care center. The funds purchased disinfectant, basic equipment, and vaccines. What had been gathered for a ritual was redirected toward prevention, treatment, and shared protection. Slowly, the Eastern Road lost its frightening reputation. People began using it after sunset. Street lights were installed beside the bamboo grove, and the ground beneath the banyan tree was cleaned. Arif opposed cutting the tree down. The tree, he said, was not responsible for the stories people had created around it. It should remain as a reminder of what fear could do. The broken brick platform was replaced by a small information board. It described the natural sounds of owls, the effects of fear on the human body, the risks created by decaying waste, and the false ghost devices found in the grove. Its final message encouraged visitors to ask questions, examine evidence, and never allow fear to make important decisions. Years passed. Rafi became a medical student. Tanya studied environmental science. Neela became a journalist, and Babul joined the police. Their lives followed different paths, but each carried something from the investigation, the habit of asking what evidence supported a claim. Whenever they returned to Shalbon, they visited their former science teacher. One evening, they sat together beneath the same banyan tree. Children played nearby, bicycles and motorcycles traveled along the eastern road, and small electric lights shone among the branches. Rafi smiled at the memory of how afraid they had once been. Babul laughed as he remembered nearly running away when the owl screamed. Arif looked into the dark branches and reflected that fear could make a rope appear to be a snake and a shadow appear to be a spirit. Tanya asked whether superstition could ever disappear completely. Arif paused. He believed it probably could not. Superstition grows wherever people feel helpless, frightened, or uncertain, because it offers an immediate and emotionally satisfying explanation. Science has a harder task. It demands patience, investigation, and the courage to admit that an answer is not yet known. Neela observed that science therefore had the more difficult job. Arif agreed, but added that science provides something superstition cannot, a method for correcting mistakes. An explanation can be questioned, tested, revised, or rejected when stronger evidence appears. At that moment, a sudden cry came from the upper branches. The children nearby stopped playing and looked toward the tree. For one brief second, the old fear seemed to return. Then a barn owl swept across the road. One child pointed upward and shouted that it was only an owl. The others laughed and returned to their game. Shalbon had not lost its stories, traditions, or imagination. It had learned to separate imagination from evidence. The villagers understood that unexplained did not automatically mean supernatural. A strange sound could be investigated. A disease could be diagnosed. A shadow could be examined. A confident claim could still be questioned and tested. Science did not remove every mystery from life. It taught people how to face mystery without surrendering to fear. Beneath the old banyan tree, where superstition had once controlled an entire village, curiosity had finally taken its place.